Well, hello there. You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages. Were you just singing then?
I was singing the music, and I'm sorry, I apologise. I just do it. I do it. Sorry.
The title music.
I know.
That's perfect,
Sorry.
Anyway, as you can see, we're joined here by the Daily Mirror's associate editor Kevin Maguire and the Daily Mail columnist Sarah Vine. I think you're still doing it.
I know. I can't help it. I just do it.
I sing to a Hoover when I do it.
I know.
Well, that's rare. Anyway, stop playing the spoons in a minute. Front pages, let's check out those, shall we? The Financial Times leads with the UK's headline inflation rate falling to a 15-month low of 7.9%, defying many forecasts. As a result, the Eye says the next Bank of England interest rates rise in 2 weeks will be smaller than originally expected. The Express says the Chancellor now expects retailers to reduce their prices to consumers after the fall in inflation. And after Nigel Farage's problems with Coutts Bank, the Daily Mail says new laws are on the way to stop banks closing the accounts of people whose views they don't like. According to the Times, they're being told they have to respect free speech. The Guardian looks ahead to tomorrow's 3 important Westminster by-elections, which it says have left many Tories worried that defeat could mean the beginning of the end for their time in power. The Metro reports on a settlement of around £2 million from the Met Police to the family of murdered private investigator Daniel Morgan after the force mishandled his case several times over more than 3 decades. The Daily Mirror leads with the story of another family left grieving after their son was murdered with a sword and calls for tougher laws on knife crime. While the Sun reports that singer and broadcaster Ella Jones has been mugged by robbers using a machete. And the Star taking a dim view of the Bank of England giving £25 million bonuses to some of its staff. Though I won't read out the headline out loud, it says, oh no, that's all right, isn't it? Maybe I might. Maybe I won't. I don't know. Anyway, reminder...
Emphasise the B. That's what you have to do.
OK.
Right?
I'll remember when I get to it. Reminder, scan the...
situation. Yeah, I know, yeah.
Exactly. We know about that one
Hello,
as well.
Ofcom.
Yes. Scan the QR code, I'm trying to say, and you'll see on screen during the programme, and check out those front pages for yourself while you listen to our guests. So let's head straight to them then. Kevin and Sarah, welcome to both of you. Inflation surprising many today, Sarah.
Well, yes, and we had good inflation figures out of America at the beginning of the week, or last week anyway. So, yes, this is very much going in the direction that Rishi Sunak wants it to go in. Whether it's too late or not, I don't know. It's probably too late for tomorrow's elections, I should think.
I would have thought so.
Notably, the values of companies like Persimmon, Barrett, house builders have risen today on the markets. So generally, sort of extremely well received.
Well, that's exactly the point, isn't it? That interest rates have a big impact on... inflation has a big impact on interest rates, which has a big impact on the property market and the rental market, as we've seen, in fact, as well.
Yeah, well, the Bank of England is putting up interest rates. I think it was 13 months in a row, up to 5%. It was 0.1% at the end of the year before last, in order to leave us with less money, so you can't spend as much in the shop, so prices have to go down. So you get fleeced one way or the other, either by high inflation or by higher mortgage interest rates. This is why I don't think the government will get any gain electorally for its people's mortgages go up. But that fall was at 0.8% from 8.7 to 7.9 was bigger than expected. 8.2 was the consensus in a Reuters poll, but it is still very high. By international standards, highest in the G7, I think, 3% in the States, higher than the EU average. So, yes, it's some relief, but at the same time, there's still a lot of pain, because 7.9% is high inflation. It means...
And it won't translate yet, will it, into prices coming down? And I think a lot of people are still trying to remortgage, still going to be feeling the extra interest rates really biting, you know, scared, worried about their not being able to make their mortgage payments. That's still going to be around. And even if he does get it down even further, it'll take a while for that to dissipate.
And but it's higher than wages are going up, both in the private, the averages in the private and the public sector. And if you're a real worker and you're going on strike, well, you've been offered 4%. Well, inflation's there. 7.9. What was it? Nurses 5.
Yeah.
Was it police
6.
officers 7?
Yeah.
Still below for them. 6 for doctors. So they're all still getting another hit on a cost of living before the bunting is out.
The government's argument has always been we won't give you more than 6-7% because that would be above inflation when we get it down to where it should be. So this is coming down to where they want it to be.
Although there was no evidence, and the government said that putting up public sector wages wouldn't fuel inflation. Because it might broadly, you could say, demand in the economy, but because you don't charge for education or you don't charge for health, it's not as if you give someone a wage and then you recover that by putting up the price, which you can argue happens in the private sector.
But I mean, it is going in the right direction. I think we have to say that.
Finally.
Finally.
And the Eye talks about, actually, the Eye's expert panel of economists, in fact, no less, predict that the Bank of England will make a smaller quarter-point increase, 0.25% increase to the UK's base rate in August. So still going to see increases, possibly 2 of them. But two questions, I guess. One is why? Why is the UK still higher? People talk about the friction that's been created by Brexit in terms of import and export, about the tight labour market that we have. And secondly, do people trust the Bank of England to get this right? Suggestion that they perhaps pumped money into the economy for too long, that the models weren't properly working, and therefore, if they leave this for too long and we go properly into recession or stagflation, then we're even more of a picture.
Yeah, I remember Boris Johnson saying inflation wasn't a threat or a danger, and then it soared. In part, it's got to be said, because of Putin's invasion of Ukraine, which sent up world commodity prices, and we import a lot of food, which is one of the reasons we've been hit hard. COVID back. Well, I think that took away economic growth. In fact, the economy hasn't recovered to its pre-COVID level yet. So no, I mean the Bank of England was widely accused, I think, of being a bit slow.
Yes.
And then it seems to,
they were a bit slow.
But then it's going a bit too far now, I would argue. There is a lot of pressure for it not to put up interest rates again.
Well, that was exactly my point.
Yeah.
You know, at what point do you call a line in it, really?
Yeah.
Which is what the Daily Express says. Prices must drop now. Inflation is falling. This is really about shopkeepers, the idea of greedflation, which has been widely dismissed, in fact, by economists. The idea that companies are putting up their prices to sort of cream a bit off after the COVID years.
I'm getting a little bit worried, though, that Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, doesn't understand inflation and saying, look, reduce prices. Look, prices are still going up. It's just they're not going up as fast as they were. They're now going to go up 7.9% on average instead of 8.7%. They're not falling. It's not negative inflation. You see, maybe the Express has misrepresented it, or maybe he's worse than I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe the Express doesn't really understand inflation.
But maybe it could be both. The Express and Hunt, what a pair.
Yeah, or there are too many people in the economy who are still wealthy enough to buy those luxury goods, which is where the squeeze should begin, effectively. Anyway, let's move on to by-elections, see how all of this feeds in. The Guardian, Tory MPs fear by-elections could leave the government in the death throes. And the interesting thing about the 3 by-elections tomorrow is that they're spread across the country. So this is absolutely fascinating.
It is fascinating, and there's all sorts of things at play. One of the most interesting things, I think, is the resurgence of the Lib Dems, because in Somerton and Froome, and of course, those of us old enough remember 2010 and how important the Lib Dems were in that election and how they became kingmakers effectively. But the Lib Dems were all but wiped out at the last election, really, and now they're coming back because they are in areas like Somerton and Froome, and also in the so-called Blue Wall, which is the part of the country that would sort of normally vote Conservative, but might be annoyed and so therefore isn't going to vote Conservative. They won't vote Labour, but they will vote Lib Dem because they see it as a sort of less Labour-y thing. So they'll do that. So that's a real danger for the Conservatives. Meanwhile, in the north, they're losing their red wall confidence. So that's a whole... So they've got a nasty pincer movement going on. And I think a lot of the sort of southern seats will probably... I mean, I think Labour will probably hold their fire in order to allow the Lib Dems to pick up those votes. And that's why, you might find people like Jeremy Hunt losing their seat to the Lib Dems. I mean, they're very
worried.
They are very...
Chancellor's worried. Demographic changes there. But the last time a party lost 3 by-elections on the same day was 1968, Labour, when they lost, I think, Acton in London, Meriden and Dudley in the Midlands. Yeah, but 55 years ago.
Yeah.
So if it's 3 strikes against the Tories tomorrow, I think that's out. And I do, there's a long time I know to the general election, but I think your party has just been hammered.
Morale is not great amongst the Tories, and particularly among certain ministers, and I think people are feeling very nervous. But I think Rishi will think, the financial stuff is starting to look good. you know, that he might have enough time to turn the ship around.
I remember before '97. In fact, you know, you remember it. That the economy was recovering.
It was, yeah.
And the Tories got zero credit for it because people remembered all the pain all the way back to Black Wednesday.
15% interest rates.
And then mega sleaze. And it was just a feeling after so long, 18 years, 4 election victories, you've had your chance. If you haven't fixed problems, whether it's in health or education or crime, you're not going to fix them.
Yeah.
You had your...
A series of sort of cataclysmic world events that have, you know, beset...
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
From the financial crisis onwards, which I suppose you'd say George Osborne tackled, and then COVID, the biggest pandemic since...
The financial crisis.
Well,
There was a promising recovery. He snuffed it out with tax rises and spending cuts.
But I mean, timing is everything in politics. It's like comedy, isn't it? You know, there are certain things that you simply can't control.
Yeah.
And if the electorate are feeling fatigued with the Conservatives, then there's an issue there.
But, you know, this government, in one way, COVID and Putin in Ukraine were events that overtook them. But Brexit was self-inflicted. And there's no doubt that is damaged the economy.
That's an entirely separate programme.
Just get you going. You know?
You mentioned Uxbridge, obviously the seat of the former Prime Minister, whether there's a legacy of angst towards Boris Johnson and the behaviour of his Downing Street.
I mean, I don't know. That's an interesting seat because there's this ULEZ issue, which is
the
quite
low emissions zone,
which is quite a localised issue. I don't know whether that will have any bearing.
Proposed initially by Boris Johnson, now been extended by City Car, although most cars will not pay it. I think once it's in, people will just, was that it? I thought somehow it's the fear.
But it will affect people. It will affect...
So the idea is if you're in that part of the world, you will be hit by it if you live slightly outside by going to the doctor's surgery or dropping your kids at school.
If you've got an older polluting car, but something like 18 and 19 and 20 cars... won't pay it.
It's Euro 2006, Euro 6 that don't pay it. But a lot of this is going to be a problem for a lot of working class people because you know if you're a tradesman or something, you're probably driving a diesel van. So it's quite an interesting attack on ordinary working people.
Yeah, but if you've got a newer, more modern van, you won't pay it. Look, I've got a diesel.
You can't afford it.
I've got a diesel car. That's nearly 8 years, and I don't pay ULEZ. I live in London.
No, but
because it qualifies under. It's only the really older polluting vehicles. It's kind of
a lot of trades vehicles.
The fear of God's been put into people. Anyway, dirty air is a big problem.
Yeah, no, it is.
You've got to clean it up.
So the other issue, of course, is whether or not there will be a reshuffle, possibly Friday, some suggest, who knows, or September. Ben Wallace has talked about it. He, of course, has said he will not be standing at the next election and will leave in the next reshuffle, which could be Friday. The question is, how big would it be? Is this the one that would set the Conservatives up for the next election? And will Labour, you know, follow suit with their own reshuffle?
Yeah, you know, if the Conservatives lose 3 seats, I don't think a reshuffle is going to necessarily improve their position.
It's going to be distraction.
Well, what you're going to... Are we really going to make those people you haven't heard of getting jobs by replacing people you haven't heard of? I mean, I'm not... Unless he moves the Chancellor and the Foreign Secretary and the Home Secretary and probably quits himself. I can't see it grabbing that many headlines.
Yeah. Well, Ben Wallace, one of those who loses his seat in the boundary changes and has decided not to find another one.
Yeah, but he was offered several, I'm told, but he's just had enough. But he'd go and make his money. And I think, you know, I actually think he's one of the more competent, capable ministers. A bit tetchy, as we saw.
Well, yeah, but he understands...
thinking he was Amazon, delivering arms, to Ukraine. Actually, if he did leave them next door, it'd be Belarus, which would be a big problem.
But he has been a good advocate for the defence force.
But he knows they're heading for opposition, and he must be doing his calculation. I can go early, get a job, makes lots of nice money, and I don't want to have to spend what could be 5 years hard grind on the backbenches in an opposition team.
Yeah. Well, and many have made that decision, as we know.
Yeah.
Anyway, lots more still to come, including should new laws be introduced to stop banks excluding customers whose views they find distasteful. That is next. Well, welcome back. You're watching the press preview with me once again, as you can see, Kevin Maguire and Sarah Vine. Welcome back to both of you. So, Daily Mail, in fact, a number of newspapers are going on the prospect of new laws to curb how banks close accounts of people they may not agree with. There's the Daily Mail's take on it. And Sarah, I know you like the first paragraph.
I think I just love the Pew cartoon. It's a man standing at a cash point and it says, "Sorry, incorrect political views. Please try again." I quite like that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a ridiculous. I mean, the thing about this story is that it's really difficult to take moral lessons from banks, isn't it? Because you feel like, hang on a second,
Our values,
you're
make
a
as
bank.
much money as we can.
You're making moral judgments about people, and you're a bank. Let's just, you know, and whatever you think of Farage. I mean, there's a 40-page dossier which has been compiled by somebody in the sort of Ministry of woke behaviour at Coutts, which is full of sort of references to things he said, and you know, says that he friends with Donald Trump and that was a bad thing, and then it mentions Brexit about 5 million times. So it's obviously been put together by their department, you know, as a sort of dossier against him, you know, as to why he's not a suitable person to have a bank account. But that's not the job of a bank. The job of a bank is to look after your money and give you a cash point.
But it's to look after everybody's money. Yes. And if they feel there might be reputational damage, and he was under the criteria for having this account at Coutts.
But the dossier concludes that there's no reason why. It's not. It doesn't say that he's done anything wrong, or that there's any reason why he should be. It's purely that they don't like what he stands for, which is fine. You don't have to like what he stands for, but it doesn't mean so you can't have a bank.
I'm with a nationwide building society now, but I used to be with NatWest, and there must be all sorts of people who probably think they don't want me to have an account at the same bank or building society as them, and me probably, you know, I don't like them. But I think everybody just has to have a right to have a bank account, as long as you're not breaking any laws.
But it doesn't have to be a Coutts one, does it? And look, there's the Telegraph. NatWest boss is now under pressure over the Farage bank scandal. To be fair, if Coutts had just said, no, sorry, you no longer meet our criteria, and by the way, we don't like your views, and he had done nothing about it, then perhaps he would have got a bank account somewhere else. Well, other banks were probably concerned about what Coutts had on him.
Yeah, I wonder if the explanation for, you know, the bank says you haven't got £1 million, didn't meet our criteria, or was it 3 million in investments? And he's got all this, you know, they don't like him because of his views and bigotry and so on, so it doesn't meet their values. I just wonder if, because he didn't meet the criteria financially, they have a review, and if you're thought to be a jolly good chap or chapess, you're kept.
But the point is,
you know, because I would have thought there's minor royals and knobs all over the country who are probably still with Coutts.
Who don't make the financials. But the point about this is that Coutts have obviously lied, because they issued this statement.
But they haven't lied, have they? Because they've said both things. They've said he didn't meet the financial criteria, and by the way, they were.
Initially, they said it's got nothing to do with who he is.
Yeah.
We love him. He's a lovely puppy. It's just because he hasn't got enough money.
Right.
And now they've changed their tune. So that's not right.
And of course, initially Farage, it was all that they don't like me because of my views, and wasn't saying he hadn't got enough money to meet their criteria. So, I mean, the truth is somewhere in the middle. But I just think it's. Should they have dumped him like this? No, that's it. He should be, you know, and I disagree with him on just about everything.
But also, the other thing to say is that you cannot exist in today's society without a bank account. It is not possible.
Well, there we are. Banks told to respect free speech makes the front of the Times. Both of you, thank you very much indeed. Kevin, Sarah, thank you.